Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. I've got energy today.
I told Vanessa before the podcast started, I said, can you ask me something other than how are you? But what questions do you have for me today, babe?
I just didn't even ask you a question.
Oh, you're just like, I have energy.
I'll just share how I'm doing if you don't want to share how you're doing.
Oh, man.
We next week we have our team coming in for the retreat. So the week that this comes out, we'll be getting ready to host some of our team members for a little team bonding, kind of diving deep into ourselves. We like to do, obviously, a lot of personal development within our company. So it's important to us to take space, lately we've done twice a year, bringing as many team members together as can be available to come and hanging out in an Airbnb and doing a lot of deep diving into personal development and making ourselves better, constantly improving upon ourselves for our clients. So that's fun. Looking forward to that. Otherwise, I feel like things have been a little crazy, just with lots of travel, lots of busyness. But for anybody who follows a little closely on Instagram, I've shared a little bit of working through some personal protocols right now. I'll bring that into like a deep dive on the podcast probably within the next month. Once I have a little bit more to share about the journey. I feel like I don't like to share about it too soon because then it's like more of like, we'll see what happens as opposed to, hey, here's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so much context too that goes involved into it, but I'll share this. And Vanessa put a story up yesterday on Instagram. Was it yesterday or the day before? But anyways, right now she's doing like a pumpkin puree creamy.
It's pretty bomb.
And she says it's pretty bomb. I don't know. I would say otherwise.
If you're like a fall girly, you like the basic
it's
pumpkin
August,
type stuff.
Babe. You can't do
for
fall
a lot of people.
Stuff.
You know what? As soon as Home Goods puts out the fall goods, that's when
is it even out
time.
yet? Are they out yet?
I mean, I haven't been to Home Goods, but I'm guessing that it is out. Someone can confirm for me. But this week, I wanted to dive into a topic that this was actually a question that I received on a Q&A poll recently. And I was like, you know what? This was a good one we can dive deep into on the podcast because there's a lot to answer this question. So you might, I feel like this is a little bit more of like a niche topic where people are either going to listen to this because they're like, yes, that is me. Tell me, why can't I sleep through the night? Why am I waking up? Why do I wake up and have trouble falling back asleep? I'm doing everything right. I'm taking care of myself. And yet nothing's working for me to be able to sleep through the night. And we all know how miserable that feels when you can't sleep through the night. Or maybe you're listening to this because you're like, I just love to learn about all these things. And if that's you, shout out to you, because the more you learn, the more you can also bring that education to others in your life. And we're big on, that's a big part of our motto within our company. We're big on creating generational change and women being able to help women. And if you empower yourself with more knowledge and more knowledge on what other people might be dealing with, even if you're not struggling with this, then you can go and help other people. And how cool is that? So by the end of this episode, you will understand what your wake up times might be telling you. You might understand a little bit more of like some of the common causes. There could be endless amount of causes for why you're waking up at night. And I'm going to hit on the ones that I most commonly see and we most commonly work through with clients. And these are the things that typically can like be that unlock to them finally being able to sleep through the night. And we'll talk about, some simple ways that you can work on these things and start to get back to more of that restorative deep sleep. Omar, I remember this was maybe a year or two ago. I remember I was talking to my aunt, and she's, perimenopausal or she's postmenopausal, and she was sharing with me of like, gosh, I really struggle with waking up during the night. Like, that's the one thing. Like, she was like, Vanessa, what's going on with that? And immediately I was like, you know what? It's probably cortisol. And I realized after I had that conversation, I was like, I honestly, I had told her, I was like, we should really look at some labs and really dive into things. But I would say, and this is what's most commonly talked about, is when you're waking up at night, it's probably cortisol. But the reason I wanted to dive deeper into this topic on this episode is because there's a lot of reasons you could be waking up at night. And for a lot of women, it's not as simple as cortisol. That probably is one piece of the equation, but there's probably some other things going on here. So maybe my aunt will listen to this episode and maybe this will help her out. So let's kind of get into this a little bit here. So first thing I want to hit on before we start talking about reasons why you might be waking up at night, I want to explain something really important when it comes to this topic. Waking up at night is not all created equal, because the timing of when you're waking up at night, that matters. So often when a client, comes to me or comes to one of our coaches and says something like, I am waking up through the night, what could be causing this? What should I do about it? Typically, our first question we're going to ask back is, what time are you waking up during the night? Because if you're waking up at 2 to 3 a.m. versus waking up at 4 to 5 a.m. versus waking up at 6 to 7 a.m., like these could all point back to different issues going on. And this is something that's just super interesting, is that there's actually something called the Chinese medicine clock.
I actually know about this. Elizabeth sent that to me.
Yeah. And so, of course, I'm not necessarily like I don't agree with all the beliefs within Chinese medicine.
You were going to say, of course, I'm not Chinese. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. No, within like Chinese medicine, I don't necessarily agree with everything within Chinese medicine, but this is one area that I do think is actually, there's a lot of truth behind this. And so what the Chinese medicine clock, if you can Google this, you can see what it looks like, but it'll actually show you how essentially different parts of the body operate on a little bit of a different schedule within the body. So think of, one way to think about this is like, think of your sleep specifically as like a night shift in a factory, right? So you might have different departments within that factory that are running on different schedules. So if one department has a problem, then the alarm is going to go off on that time that it's their schedule, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about here when we ask, okay, what time are you waking up? We're going to want to think about, okay, what part of the body, which organ system is really operating specifically during that time period overnight. And that's going to really help us understand a little bit more of where should we start with looking, because there could be other things contributing, but this can give us a really good place to start with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I have it pulled up, but it's cool to see like how different times of the day could correlate to different symptoms and or processes in your body. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you one example, the most common wake up time I hear from my clients, especially when they're first coming in to coaching, and if it's like a key thing they're expressing of like, of the things that I'm dealing with that I'd like to resolve, one thing that I'm struggling with is I wake up at night and I struggle to fall back asleep, or maybe I can't fall back asleep at all. The most common time I hear from them that they're waking up is between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. And so 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., guess what is operating most at that time? It's your liver. And so your liver is a key part of your overall organ system. So we actually hone in on first most of the time with clients, because it impacts everything else. And because across the board, hands down, liver is, I would say, the most common thing I see with women as like a root issue, that our livers are bogged down because we live in 2025. We're constantly exposed to just this, toxins and everything, let's be honest. And ultimately you can build up toxins to where your liver, it's building up toxins over time. And I always like to use the analogy. It's like a filter. If you have, a water bottle with a filter in it, you have to change that filter every once in a while. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you have a dryer and you have the little dryer filter thingy.
Okay, let's get into that one. How often do we change ours?
I change it all the time. When have you last changed it?
Listen, I change it every time I can. Every time I see it.
You can.
I can only do so much, babe.
No, it's almost satisfying for me to like pull all that
the
lint out.
Yeah.
Except one time I saw an episode of what was that show called? But one of those that were just like people have really weird habits, and this one lady would use
like the weird addiction ones, or
something that
disorder.
And she would use her dryer lint for literally everything. Like she would like use it as like cotton swabs. She would use it
Put that into her cotton swab. I thought you meant like a ear thingy.
Well, she would like use it as far as like taking makeup off her face.
God.
Like she would use it for everything. And so I always think about that every time I clean it out. But anyway, back to your liver, just like a dryer, we got to make sure we're cleaning it out every once in a while. And this is a very, very common thing. And so that alone can be a big difference maker for people. So as you go through this and as we talk through some different reasons that you could be waking up through the night, I want you to also consider, what time do you typically wake up at night? And if you're not sure, now's a good time to start tracking that. When you wake up at night, check the time. And of course, it's a hard thing because we don't want to like be exposing ourselves to blue light too when we're waking up. So that's tough. But if you can do that without exposing yourself to blue light,
you can like open one eye and be like, okay, it's 3 a.m.
It's like a really quick look.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can do that, that would be great. But try and actually note down, maybe like keep a little journal by your bed, like a little notepad, sticky note, something, and note down the time and start to pay attention to what time it is that you're waking up typically. So let's get into some common causes of middle of the night wake ups. So I want to hit on first what we already started to talk about, which is cortisol. So this is a super common one I see.
I think it's probably one of the most popular ones I hear too, right?
Yeah. And I mean, in general, cortisol is like a popular topic. I think everybody wants to point everything back to cortisol, which is fair because stress is a root issue of everything, realistically. But when it comes to cortisol, so we have to remember that your cortisol operates with a circadian rhythm. So with the 24-hour clock, there is a rhythm to cortisol. It is not the same levels across the day. So your cortisol should rise from those early hours of the morning and peak sometime. It can vary by person, but sometime between like 6 to 8 a.m. is really when it should start to be reaching that peak. And then across the day, it's going to slowly go down and taper off to where then at nighttime, cortisol gets very low, and that's where melatonin is going to be the opposite, and it's going to actually pick up, and that's what helps us get sleepy, fall asleep, stay asleep. So it's important to understand that first and foremost. Now, understanding that, now you can understand too that when your cortisol rises could be affecting your ability to sleep through the night. For a lot of people, we see very dysregulated cortisol rhythms. And so this is something that's pretty cool about the Dutch test is that it is a 4-point cortisol test, but for those who wake up at night, it can actually be a 5-point cortisol test. So Dutch actually gives an optional 5th strip to test your cortisol overnight as well, test your hormones overnight.
So when you say like 4 or 5 point, it's like 4 or 5 different samples.
Yeah, because you want to see what does that curve of your cortisol look like. When is it rising? When is it dropping? And I can't tell you how many times I see clients where their cortisol was high when it should be low and their cortisol is low when it should be high. No. And so oftentimes,
yours was like that, wasn't it?
Mine was just kind of flatlined.
Oh, yours just never went up.
I was just dead. So cortisol can be, flatlined. It could be dysregulated in terms of like being opposite of what it should be. But oftentimes when people are waking up at night, what could be happening is it could be rising prematurely. It could be rising too early in those early hours in the morning. And that's where someone might be waking up early hours in the morning because their cortisol is starting to rise earlier than it really should be. Think of it as like your body is like setting this alarm clock too early because it thinks morning is already here. It's like it thinks that the rooster is crowing even though it's still dark outside, right? That's cortisol just going off a little too early. So oftentimes that's us needing to look into just overall adrenal dysregulation, needing to support both on a supplement level to kind of help restore our adrenals, but also huge lifestyle changes with this. And we got to work on our stress during the day. We got to work on making sure when we get up in the morning, we're actually getting sunlight in our eyes. If you're up before sunrise, then once the sun does rise, make sure you go out for a couple minutes and just get some sun in your eyes. If you're waking up after sunrise, go ahead and like within ideally the first 30 minutes of your day, if not, first hour would be also great, but like sooner the better within waking up, get some sun in your eyes. Like this is important.
Like you want me to stare directly into the sun is what you're saying. I'm kidding.
You can, but nobody else. So that's something to think about. Now, the next thing I want to get into is blood sugar. So this is one that people don't really think about too much when it comes to sleep, right? So think about it like this. Overnight we are fasting, right? Ideally, you're not someone who like sleepwalks and eats in their sleep. But most of us are fasting overnight. Like this is a normal, natural thing for your body to have collected its calories across the day and to now be sufficient overnight to be able to get through until your next meal in the morning when you have that break fast, when you have breakfast. So ultimately, overnight, your body is using energy. Just because you're not eating overnight doesn't mean that your body's not utilizing those stored calories. So how does it do that? It's running off of blood sugar. Glucose is your primary fuel source, right? So if blood sugar dips really low, what's going to happen, and this is where we also, again, cortisol affects everything. What's going to happen is your body, blood sugar is dipping low, your body's going to say, we need to release some cortisol because cortisol is what's going to trigger your body to bring blood sugar back up. So that's where this could also be a little bit of like that root issue of cortisol disturbance as well. That's why we also work on blood sugar balancing habits when it comes to getting our cortisol in check.
So is it fair to say too, then, when you have like high stress in your body, cortisol is high, that you'll have a higher blood sugar? Is that fair to say?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. So what I was saying, is it fair to say that if you have lots of cortisol in your body, is it fair to say that you'll also probably have high sugar levels?
Yeah, typically if you are, it could be either low cortisol or high cortisol, but just in general, cortisol imbalances are going to be linked to blood sugar disturbances as well. Totally. So this would be like your body is just, again, it keeps that good store of energy across the night. But imagine it's like, okay, we fueled up, we're going on a road trip, we filled our gas tank because we saw one of those signs where it's like, no gas station for X many miles. And so you're like, okay, let me fill up the gas tank. But maybe the gas tank had a leak in it or something, like for whatever reason, you didn't actually have enough to get you across to the other side where the next gas station is. So it's like your body's like sending the signal of like, oh my gosh, we need more gas. We need to pull out the extra fuel we have. That's what your body's doing there. You can typically, so questions I would ask here. So again, we always start with what time are you waking up, but with blood sugar, it could be at various times here. Is it really just going to depend on when your blood sugar does make that dip? So questions I would start to ask is like, how do you feel when you wake up? Are you waking up feeling hungry? Are you waking up feeling, maybe a little bit lightheaded, maybe a little bit dizzy if you stand up? But typically if you're waking up hungry, that could be blood sugar as well.
Sometimes that happens to me. I'm curious to see. Maybe I need to start checking more of my blood sugars.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've been working on blood sugars for a little while too, so it would make sense that would probably be a little bit at play.
Yeah.
And again, cortisol and blood sugar being linked. So it's also something to note, maybe during more stressful seasons, you find yourself waking up a little bit more at night too, because they could be both at work together.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Getting into our next one now. So this might be something I see for a lot of women with hormonal imbalances. So this could be often women who are perimenopause. I see this a lot in our 40-something clients who are getting closer to menopause and are starting to notice those changes in their body. But I also would see this often for those who come off of birth control, like especially if they came off of birth control without support, doing this without coaching, things like that. Oftentimes I'll see this happen as well, and that is low progesterone. So if our progesterone is low, how would this affect sleep? So progesterone supports GABA. So GABA is basically like a calming hormone, and it's an analogy I like to use. It's kind of almost like the natural glass of wine. Right? It kind of like relaxes the brain a little bit. Out. Yeah, it gives you a little bit of that chill. It kind of helps your brain just feel like, okay, I can switch off now. Like we can settle our brain overnight, right? So GABA.
Maybe I need to start drinking wine.
Yep. GABA and progesterone are linked. So when progesterone is low, GABA is typically low as well. And so this is a big part of oftentimes when women have trouble sleeping through the night, it's often, hey, let's focus on getting our progesterone up. They're probably also not just dealing with not being able to sleep through the night. They're probably dealing with a lot of other things. Maybe it's some anxiety, because again, progesterone itself is also a little bit of a calming hormone. So we'll often see those types of things as well. Another thing that I'll see is a histamine buildup. So we've talked about histamines a little bit on the podcast before. So histamines are like messengers from your immune system. So think of it as like your immune system is going to start stimulating the brain with these histamine messengers, right? And so if we have high levels of histamines, your brain, just like we talked about with GABA being kind of like that calming, a little bit of like calming system for the brain, histamines are going to be like a little bit more activating for the brain. So if we have this buildup of histamines, it's more likely that we're just going to have less deep sleep, have a little bit more restlessness, less restfulness, more restlessness, and just more wakefulness.
Okay.
So think of it as like your brain has a little party at midnight because we got this buildup of histamines. We got all these like party goers, right?
That's my party noise.
Yeah, thank you for dropping the beat there. And so it's just, in this time period where you should be really calm overnight, this is a reason that your brain could feel more alert. So what can be a trigger for a histamine buildup? There can be a lot of things at play. Again, stress could be part of that. Your body, when it's stressed, your immune system is going to be more active. A stressed body is going to have a little bit more of an activated immune system, and that's going to create a buildup of histamines because your body's going to keep sending those histamines out thinking like, oh, we got to go and take care of whatever is your immune system is trying to protect you. It's like sending out the soldiers and trying to do all that, right? It could also be foods. So oftentimes if someone's dealing with symptoms of histamine issues, we'll look at doing a little bit of a low histamine diet for a period of time. So we'll start cutting out foods that are higher in histamines. Some people also even like genetically don't tolerate histamines very well. So there could be things at play there that we want to work on. A big one is gut issues. If someone has gut imbalances, then they're typically going to struggle with histamines as well.
Do you think that, because I know we talked about like progesterone and cortisol and all that stuff and blood sugar dips. So you mentioned gut issues. Would that obviously like be, if that is the root cause of a lot of these things, you can like, I guess it's cool to see how one thing, meaning gut issues, can lead to so many other things like sleep disorder or waking up in the middle of the night. But again, a lot of it is tied back to, figuring out that root cause. Does that make sense? I don't know where I was going with that.
It's like, it's cool in the sense of understanding like,
it's a puzzle,
Yeah. Like I was saying, it's cool to understand how linked your body really is. And that's why it's like, you can be dealing with these symptoms. You're like, okay, what type of doctor should I go to with this symptom? And it's like, I'm going to go for this type of specialist, but yet they haven't been able to help me. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to go to this specialist. They haven't been able to help me. It's, it's not to say that we don't need these specialist doctors. We absolutely need them in certain situations, but for these like I say generic, but just like more general symptoms that could be due to so many different root causes, trying to just focus on specific areas of the body isn't going to be helpful. We got to be looking strategically at the body as a whole, right? So continuing then on our list of like things we want to be looking at, we talked about this one a little bit already, and that is the liver. So liver overload can be a huge part of why we're waking up at night. And so this is where oftentimes for many clients, we might, within kind of like the functional health side of things, we might start with a flush protocol, which is a type of functional medicine protocol where we're really targeting the liver. We're also doing some work on the adrenals, on the thyroid. Like we're kind of getting like a clean slate across organ systems that we can then start to hone in a little bit more on things like our gut, our hormones, our immune system, things like that. But the flush can be really transformative for women who struggle to sleep during the night. I can't tell you how many times I've had women that they get to the other side of the flush and they're like, oh my gosh, my sleep is finally good. I've struggled with this for years. Like, oh my gosh. So that's a huge part of the process. It can also be that, because I also want to like make sure it's clear too, when you're working on the liver, you might even have like a little bit of an uptick in this, because when your liver's working really hard, so like in, the initial stages of the flush, it's very normal to experience a little bit more of like a Herx reaction, a little bit of like these detox symptoms where you just feel kind of run down, you feel fatigued, you feel it can be different things for different people, maybe a little bit of a headache. But one thing that could increase is actually waking up at night because of the fact that your liver's working really hard to clean itself out. Once you get to the other side of that, it's kind of like you're working really hard to do a deep clean of your house. It's really exhausting to do it. But once you get to the other side of that, now you feel really good to finally have that really clean house. Next one would be dehydration. So this one is huge. Electrolyte imbalances is a big sign that I see for women waking up at night. This is something that you've dealt with before in terms
cramps. Oh my God. Yeah, they're the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. So cramps, if you wake up at night with a cramp, that's a big sign there's probably an electrolyte imbalance going on. I can't tell you how many times like Omar, I would be like peacefully, just like nice and like restfully asleep. And suddenly I had this oh my God, my leg.
My calves, babe, my calves. Oh, they're the worst.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar with this one just from.
You know what has helped? I think magnesium has really helped me with that. I don't know what it. I mean, you can probably explain it more, but like ever since I started doing that, I've been able to just have that deeper, better sleep. And I think maybe a lot of it is minerals missing. That has helped a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of supplementing with magnesium. That is one that I do actually talk about on the podcast regularly. And as you all know, I'm not big on talking about what supplements to take, but magnesium is one of those rare ones where I think almost anybody could benefit from taking magnesium. We're all like super depleted minerally. A lot of it just from even like our foods, our soil is more depleted than ever. So it's really hard to get these minerals from our diet the way that maybe our ancestors could have at one point. So nowadays that is one of those areas that is typically beneficial to supplement with magnesium. So a little magnesium before bed. Magnesium glycinate is my favorite. That can be really, really helpful for you. But this also could be you're simply not drinking enough water. A lot of women come in and they're like, oh, I already know that I need to drink more water. Like, I already know about drinking more water. You don't need to tell me to do that. It's like, okay, well, how much water are you drinking? They're like, oh, well, I'm like having, 4 bottles of water across the day. It's like, okay, like, it's great that you know you need to drink more water, but you still got to drink more water. Like, we can't get into taking supplements if we're just not doing something as simple as drinking more water, because that is the foundation for everything. All these cellular processes, all these organ systems, they all are operating foundationally off of needing water, needing fluid in the body. So if you wake up at night, like Omar mentioned with cramps, typically that's more electrolytes, I would say, but that could also be, like, you could be imbalanced on electrolytes because your water is also imbalanced. Like, it needs to be a certain, ratio of water and electrolyte. So it could be both there. But if you also are like a little bit twitchy, if you wake up dry mouth, that one is always a sign for me that I haven't drank enough water the day before. Those are all signs. Think of it as like your nerves and your muscles are similar to like a car battery, where you need fluids, right? And so if you're not giving your body fluids and minerals to keep it running smoothly, then it's gonna start to have like sparks going off, right? And that's where like the fidgeting, the cramps, all of that starts happening. Another one on my list, we already started to talk about this a little bit here as well, and that is gut imbalances. So if you are dealing with overgrowth of certain gut bacteria or inflammation in the gut lining, these could all be things that are driving you to wake up, because it's typically coming back to your immune system. So your immune system is primarily housed in your gut. About 75% of your immune cells actually are in the gut. So when we have issues in our gut, when we have what we would call leaky gut, where we have, a little bit more of like nicks and kind of openings in our gut lining where we shouldn't. When we have imbalances of gut bacteria, we have, either high levels of even the good bacteria or the bad bacteria, whatever that looks like. These are all going to be things that cause your body to start to just like light up thinking there's an intruder. Because if your gut's not working properly, then things that your gut should be filtering out of the body are going to slip through the cracks in the gut lining, getting places where they're not supposed to get to. So what is this like? It's like if you were sleeping in your house at night and then intruders keep getting in, you're probably not going to sleep very well. That's what's happening in your body. These like intruders basically are getting where they're not supposed to be getting. And so your body just keeps lighting up the immune system, keeps, turning the alarm on, turning the lights on in the house. And that's what's going to keep waking you up. Typically, if this is a root cause of why you're waking up, you're probably also experiencing bloating. You're probably experiencing irregular bowel movements. Maybe you're not going to the bathroom every day. Maybe you're going to the bathroom too many times. It's a very loose stool. This could be food sensitivities. Like if you're aware of certain foods don't seem to sit well with you, those could all be signs that your gut is off.
You know what's crazy? If you think about it too, so you gave a good bit of a good list here, but think of it like this, because I see this happen so many times. I'm like, a lot of the ladies that we talk to, they're already dealing with probably a lot of GI related issues, bloat, constipation, diarrhea. On top of that, they're probably not drinking a lot of water. On top of that, they've probably had just a lot of toxins and or just a lot of buildup in their liver, and then add that with a little bit of stress and like changes in, hormonal levels coming off of birth control, pregnancies, all that stuff. And now they're like, oh my gosh, like, where do I start? And I'm like, well, we got to start with all of it, but one step at a time, of course. But I think that's where people miss it. They're like, oh, like, it's just this one thing. It's just this. But I'm like, when you look at the overall picture of health, now you start to see how much all of this compounds. And what you were saying earlier, I think hits so true, where it's like, hey, if you don't have somebody that is overlooking at all of these things, you go to a specialist and they're looking at one area, one specific part of your body. I'm like, well, then you're missing the whole picture. And I think that's where a lot of people, they get so frustrated because they don't see the results, because you're missing, pieces 1 through 7 and you're just looking at the 8th thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, then the 8th thing, to kind of tie it all together as you were leading up to there, this would just be lifestyle factors. So you might want to find this like, oh my gosh, it's my gut, it's my blood sugar, it's, my liver. Like you might want to point to something a little bit more functional and like fancy sounding as the root issue. But we also just need to simply look at lifestyle. We could do all the fancy protocols to work on your gut, to work on your liver, to work on, bringing progesterone up, to work on, even things that we haven't talked about on this episode of all the different aspects of your body that could be affecting your ability to sleep well. But if we're not focusing on your lifestyle, you are cutting yourself short. We have to make sure that we are looking at our bedtime routine. what does your nighttime routine look like? And you probably already have some form of routine in place, even if it's an unintentional routine. There's probably certain things that you consistently do at night. Maybe those things aren't serving you. Maybe you're, on Instagram scrolling late into the night. Maybe someone, I didn't even look at you. I wasn't going to call you out, but potentially someone added himself, as maybe that's something that one of us struggles with a little bit, but not naming names here. It could be that you're watching TV at night. That's one thing I would say I'm proud of with us. We've consistently always had a really good habit and routine of we typically don't watch TV on weeknights. Occasionally we will. It always feels like an extra special thing when we do. We're like, oh, let's watch TV on a Tuesday. But we typically only keep TV to the weekends, and not saying this to shame anybody who does watch TV during the week.
Shame.
It's more of looking at, if you're struggling with this, if you're struggling with your sleep at night, be honest with yourself about what parts of your evening routines might be helping you versus maybe holding you back. And if you are going to be looking at screens, if you're going to be watching a TV, if you're going to be, working on your computer late at night, if you're going to be looking at apps on your phone late at night, at least bare minimum, get blue light blocking glasses. So the ugly ones with the orange lenses, that's what I'm talking about. You need to be having blue light blockers on to help you at least with that. Blue light is a huge part of why we struggle to sleep in modern day world. We talk about sunlight in the morning. That's a big part, setting our circadian rhythm. Late meals is another big lifestyle factor. A lot of people, I struggle with this one. We tend to eat too late at night, and then you're going to bed with a full stomach, and then now your gut's trying to work hard while you're trying to let your organ systems and your whole body kind of go into more of this peaceful setting. It's hard for your body to do that because your body temperature is going to rise to kind of work your metabolism, work through that food. That's going to affect your sleep as well. So really just think of it as your sleep is like an orchestra. And if the timing is off, the music is going to be off, right? We got to make sure that we're looking at all the systems of the body. We're looking at how we operate throughout our day, from how we wake up to how we go about the day, what time we finish dinner, what time we're looking at blue lights, all of those things. So to put this all together, hopefully this gave you some insights into what might be going on with your body. But I would encourage you, first thing, start tracking when are you waking up at night? What times? What are the patterns? See if you can note a specific recurring pattern of time that you wake up at night. Then I want you to look at your lifestyle first. So those things we just talked about. What does your sleep schedule look like? Are you regularly going to bed at the same time? That's important. If we're going to bed super late on weekends, but earlier during the week, that's going to be a problem for your body to find that consistent rhythm. Is our light exposure off? Are we not getting sunlight in the morning? And that's making our circadian rhythm struggle. Are we eating meals really late at night? Are we not drinking enough water? Let's look at those things. Then I want you to actually start diving into the functional things after you've looked at lifestyle. So functional meaning, let's look at our blood sugar. Let's look at our hormones. Let's get our hormones tested. Let's look at our gut, get our gut tested. Let's think about our liver, our histamines. These are all factors to consider. Then finally, small changes. You can't tackle it all at once. Small incremental changes is the way to go. Don't try to fix everything at once. You're just going to overwhelm yourself, stress yourself, and probably end up with stress that's going to hold you back anyway. So if you are struggling to sleep through the night, you're not alone. Your body is sending you a message. It's time to just start working on decoding that message and figuring out what is causing it, not just trying to cover up the message. Putting your phone on mute is what you're doing if you're just taking sleeping pills, just taking melatonin at night. Those are things that are not going to help you long term. So next time you wake up at night, don't just get frustrated with it. Think of it as what is my body trying to tell me, and use it as a signal.
And if you can't sleep, just play this podcast and learn a little bit more about what to do when to sleep.
Omar will relax you.
I'll sing you a lullaby.
But I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you struggle with this, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you specifically kind of troubleshoot and walk you through things. The best way to reach out to me is on Instagram at Vanessa G Fitness. And I'm always happy to hear from you guys, so never be afraid to reach out to me. But I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, do me a favor, share it with a friend, post it on your story, do something to spread this to others who might benefit from it as well. But we'll be back next week with another great episode.
Thanks, everybody.